And we're marking World Teachers' Day as part of UNESCO, the United Nations Organization for Education, Science and Culture. And very much the focus this year, it's a call for teachers. That's the slogan for World Teachers' Day. There's not enough of them around the world. We need more good teachers to join the profession. And also the focus of this year's celebration is very much on global citizenship and cultural diversity. So teachers developing learners' abilities to build a sustainable future with citizens who are able to take action in their own communities and contribute to global challenges. So really empowering the youth to go out into the big wide world and have a good perspective and the confidence to contribute in any way that they wish to. Interesting discussion, and to reintroduce our first guest today.
We've got with us here with 25 years of teaching experience, Sarah Dial, and she is the head of learning support at Repton, and she's also an educational psychologist. So welcome, Sarah, again.
Thank you.
Great to have you here, Sarah. And also joining us round at the table, we have Jenny Keating, the head of primary school at Regent International School, and she's here to talk about a range of things that they're doing at Regent International at their primary school, but in particular the Education in Human Values programme, which I think ties in very nicely with this year's World Teachers' Day when it comes to diversity. So welcome to the show, Jenny.
Thank you.
Great to see you. And also joining us, we have Nicole Florentine from Widad Centre for Child Development. And I love the slogan for you. I was looking at your mission statement on the website for the centre, and it says, it's not what to think, it's how to think. Now, let's get a little bit of an understanding of what you're doing in your particular education field. So let's start with you, Jenny, and what you're up to at Regent International.
Hi, yeah. We're basically really promoting many different things at Regent International School, but mainly we're looking at a programme called EHV, which stands for Education Human Values. And what we're trying to promote is a very much whole school aspect and a whole school implementation, where we try and underpin some key concepts of making sure children take accountability for themselves and also understand not just academic but the social side. So basically right from kindergarten we talk about 5 main values, which is truth, love, peace, right conduct and non-violence, and that starts off right from the age of 3, and we embed that from kindergarten all the way up to age 18, where they leave in the 6th form and they have the chance in year 9 to do an examination in global citizenship. That's one of the things we're promoting.
So is that more intertwined in the curriculum, or are there specific times during the day or the week that you practice this particular education human value?
In answer to your question, it's a combination of both. It's discrete in the kindergarten and in all the way up to primary. And what we make sure is we do an hour a week. But also, we also make sure that it's done underpinning of obviously all our assemblies, all our parental communication, all our play times. It underpins everything all of the time. So we do have a discrete subject. It's a lesson allocated every week. And then we also make sure to teach it in other subjects.
Why? Why do you think this is important?
I think it's important because the way in which the world is going, it's very driven by academia, which of course is important. Standards, attainment, progress. People need to be able to read and write competently. Where we may fail in teaching is we forget about the personal skills that we need to make sure children are able to access the world, if you like, and become better citizens. And we think that's important to make that work alongside the academia.
So the human side,
yeah,
the human, the compassionate side of things.
Very much so. Caring for others, for example. My assembly this morning was all about friendship, for example, for my year 5 and 6 children.
Let's bring Nicole in here, because interesting work being done at the Widad Centre. So tell us your thoughts on that and the approaches that you're bringing into your place.
I think it's actually really great. We were chatting before, so I got to get some more information. At Widad Centre, it's brand new. We have gone through several different processes, but basically what we're doing is we're starting an alternative education program. What we have are a lot of different techniques to learning. So we have a holistic approach, so hands-on, creative work. Rather than give the students textbooks, we actually allow them to make their textbooks. So they're learning through all of their senses. We have a gardening program which everybody participates in. We have a baking program which everybody participates in. Woodwork and crafting, movement, kinesiology. So you're really involving the whole child when it comes to learning.
And the multiple aspects of intelligence that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with our program, it's not what you teach, it's how, it's how. And the way that we teach allows every student, whether they have any sort of, maybe a delay, maybe they don't have a delay, maybe they just need a different program that works for them, we allow that to happen. We allow them to be creative. We help them participate in society. Community and parental emphasis is highly encouraged for our program. It's not for everybody, but it definitely is a close-knit family.
What age group are you talking about?
Right now we have K through sixth grade, and that's the American school system. So.
And so for that age group, you can see the emphasis on creativity, on play, those sort of social skills developing, and perhaps not so much on academia, but nevertheless, do you get concerns from parents, or when you're placing yourself, if you like, in the marketplace for all of you, about getting the balance right between the children getting all of the fundamentals in place for learning when it comes to reading, writing, arithmetic, the old ways of saying these things, but numeracy and literacy, as well as the human side and the social side and the creative sides of things?
Well, I'll tell you something. Our curriculum is actually, we're using an accredited curriculum from the U.S. called Oak Meadow. It's actually designed as a homeschool program, and what it follows are the American core standards. So every child that's enrolled with us will receive that accreditation from the U.S. So it's something that will go with them. Because we are partners with them as well, we are obligated to fulfill their rules and requirements and guidelines for the academia there. So they are getting all of that. They're getting the numeracy, they're getting the English, the language, but they're getting it taught to them in a way where they're actually understanding why they need to learn it. So it's hands-on. So rather than teach it on a computer or a whiteboard, we teach it through tangible things that they use, because tangible is touch, right? You could touch this, tactile. It's also reinforced then through visual. Then it's reinforced through auditory. So you're targeting all of the senses, so the child actually is taking in the core of this math, which is also black and white, right? You either get the right answer or the wrong answer, so they have it in front of them so they can see it and it makes sense. And with all of those lessons, that's how we carry out our learning techniques.
Yeah, I think it's very innovative, very unique, but it's going to take some time before people understand the system, as well as saying that it comes from a particular country or a particular education system. Certainly for here is not sufficient, because we know that American tertiary education is amazing, university education, but that the high school and the primary school systems have lots of flaws,
right.
and downfalls. So for lots of parents, that might be a concern, as well as a lot of what we've been discussing used to traditionally be after-school activities.
Right.
So I remember baking, and these things used to be an option that students would choose. So really important to consider how we can
but even
nurture
at that young
these
age,
things.
I mean, in those sort of early,
Yes.
Absolutely. I had it all throughout. Sorry to interrupt, but I had it all throughout my education in California. I had measurement in baking. So even at a KG level, they're pouring the water, they're measuring the water, following the lines, not maybe a third a cup, but they're following the line. So they have some sort of spatial understanding. So it's part of the curriculum, because the baking is also part of the math.
Yeah, but what it does allow for is the unique differences of these children to shine. If I'm not good at math, but I like baking, maybe I can understand fractions through this method.
Yeah.
And it might stick, and I might absorb it much better, rather than just looking at coins and balls and pie charts and things like that. Yeah.
For you, Jenny, that debate between academia and the vocational side of learning, what are your thoughts on that?
Going back to your question, I think you asked about the parental involvement and even the parental worries, if you like. for me is that big word balance and consistency. And certainly in the school I'm at, as long as we keep our parents informed of what is happening, I think we're quite proud of our curriculum actually at Regent, because we know there's milestones, we know there's certain progress we want children to make, both at the end of key stages but also at the end of every half term, so there's rigorous assessment. However, if your curriculum matches up with your assessment, I believe that you're doing lessons every day that all equates to being able to sit a test. For example, our lessons focus around a theme, they focus around a topic. I can give you an example of our year ones doing fairy tales for the whole... Well, that means they can write a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. That then is intrinsic with our ECAs and our extracurricular activities. But also we're very important, we feel, about learning outside the classroom is important throughout the whole of school. Going on a trip that you can then bring back into school and you can write readily and write for an audience. The answer is balance. Getting the balance right of academia and making learning fun at the same time.
This is Voices of Diversity on Dubai Today with Suzanne Radford and Samineh Shaheen, delving into diversity, sharing cross-cultural stories, and celebrating the nationalities living in the UAE. Dubai Today, only on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Lots of messages coming in as you are celebrating World Teachers' Day and thanking the teachers that have had and made a big impression on you or your children. One here saying, I would like to thank a teacher who is in the studio with you at this very moment, Mrs. Sarah Dial. She's been a teacher to me since 4th grade and a mother. She has inspired me through all the hard times in my life, and I would like her to know that she is the most wonderful teacher I have ever had. And that's from Firas Hussain.
Firas, I love you, my boy. I love you. So sweet.
And also, just to reintroduce our guests here, we have Nicole Florentine from Widad Centre for Child Development, inspiring minds and bringing a holistic approach to teaching and educating and developing the young people today. Also joining us is Jenny Keating, the head of primary school at Regent International School, and all sorts happening at Regent International, but in focus, I think connecting very much with our topic today when it comes to celebrating World Teachers' Day and UNESCO's call for teachers and focusing on global citizenship and cultural diversity. They're running an education in human values program currently at Regent International. And also we have the lovely Sarah Dale here.
So, talking about cultural differences,
who's from Repton,
yes.
And are you with us, Sammy? Are you here? Hello.
Something happened with my microphone. My headphones started buzzing, so I don't know what happened. I'm still talking about cultural differences in my head.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you first about where you come from and the teachers that have made a big impression on you. So, Jenny, where are you from originally?
I'm from the UK. And I'm totally trained and I'm totally from an education system in the UK. And the schooling that we are in now is very different to the schooling I had when I was at school. It was very prescriptive, it was very repetitive, it was very chalk and talk, and what I deem to be rote learning. Without being too rude to the teachers who taught me, I would like to see a lot of them in the education system today.
Really?
Yeah. Wonderful people, but maybe could have done a little bit more into the personal touch, I think.
Okay, so that was it very much that sort of old school style stereotype of the sort of disciplinarian and not too much of the connection we've been talking about earlier between the teacher and the child. So, okay, interesting.
And very much a British application to teaching. We're talking about global diversity. I mean... certainly in Dubai, we're dealing with, it's a very cosmopolitan country. In the schools we're in, we have 64 different nationalities. The school I came from, I think there maybe might have been 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's very, very different education to what we're working with and what we have to deliver to children to keep them embraced.
So why did you want to become a teacher?
Probably from my secondary school, I remember sitting in a few lessons and listening and sat very disengaged and thinking, this is how not to do it. And I left school and I just said to myself, I think these teachers have me for more of the time than I'm at home and they make a difference. And I wanted to make a difference. And I try and keep that philosophy every day.
It's a very good point, isn't it? That the responsibility that a teacher has with the students in their care, but for the student, they're going to spend an awful lot of time with that teacher, a huge part of their day, 5 days a week for a year or more with that one particular teacher, or maybe more. And so they're a big part. School and teachers are a big part of children's lives.
Well, yeah, not just lives, their vision, their future, their application, their attitude, but their aspiration. Teachers do inspire. And I think that's what we have. We inspire.
But they also challenge, and there's a lot of people that I've spoken to who had a horrible teacher that told them you'll never add up to anything when you grow up. And that kind of vibration, that voice stayed in their head. And unfortunately, they were driven through this negative circumstance, but nevertheless, it impacts the individual, both positively and negatively. Yeah,
absolutely.
So for you, Nicole, where are you from originally?
San Francisco, California. So my education was in the United States and California. I have a personal, story about myself. I mean, I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was really young. Thankfully, I was in a place that was able to support the way that I learned. So my mom immediately put me into a private school that specializes in dyslexia, and I had millions of different modifications of learning, ways that I was taught, hands-on. It was very much so how to get my mind to not put things backwards anymore. So I have always really wanted to help those kids that maybe have struggled with, something like dyslexia, something that, maybe reading difficulties, autism, ADHD, you name it. I've specialized in that. So I had a really good educational background, I think. I think when I moved to public school, I still had a lot of really good teachers.
When did you move to public school?
I moved to public school in 4th grade, and it was a different way of learning, but the teachers were still very passionate. It was harder for me because it took me a lot more time to take exams and what have you, but I was allowed those modifications. I was allowed to chew gum taking exams. I was allowed extended time to take the exams. I was, allowed maybe a small little cheat sheet as well when it came to, algebra. But in general, I had really good teachers. No one told me that I couldn't do it. I think it was the opposite. They said, you can do it and you will do it. And I think that if it wasn't for, the start of my educational career, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. I probably would have still been struggling. I still do struggle. However, I still know those modifications and the techniques that I learned when I was younger to fix it.
Well, there's someone, Audrey, Andri, I don't know if that's a typo or the name, but forgive me if I've got that wrong, but Andri saying the best teachers are those who not only explain theoretical concepts to students, but train you to apply the frameworks in real life and apply to problem solving. My favourite teacher was Dr. Ed Bond, Professor of Marketing at Bradley University. He taught me how to handle adversity with flexibility and an open mind. Talking to our teachers here, our selection from the UAE, and asking what does it take to be a good teacher and what are some of the challenges facing teachers today, and also addressing a message that came in earlier from one of our listeners concerned about teacher qualifications and what are the qualifications if you are a teacher here in the UAE.
This is Voices of Diversity on Dubai Today with Suzanne Radford and Samineh Shaheen, delving into diversity, sharing cross-cultural stories, and celebrating the nationalities living in the UAE. Dubai Today, only on Dubai Eye 103.8.
And we're celebrating World Teachers Day, UNESCO's World Teachers Day, and focusing very much on global citizenship and cultural diversity, and a call for teachers. That's the slogan for this year. There needs to be more teachers in the world. And is this a profession that you've considered or indeed would like to go into? And to reintroduce our guests, we have Jenny Keating, the head of primary school at Regent International, and focusing a lot on education and human values program, a lot with many, many other things. I want to ask you in a little while, Jenny, about your bring your own device, which is a new thing that's been brought in at Regent International, and a hot topic, I think, and debate when it comes to technology and what our children are able to do. I'm sure there must be cases sometimes when teachers look and think that child knows more than me when it comes to that particular device or gadget. Also joining us here is Nicole Florentine, who is from the Widad Centre for Child Development. This is a new facility here in the UAE, bringing quite a holistic approach to teaching and learning, and then wonderful things that are being engaged here in the centre for our young people in the UAE.
And we also have Sarah Dial here with 25 years of teaching experience and head of learning support at Repton, and she's also an educational psychologist. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. So yeah, picking up on what we were talking about earlier and moving on a little bit, what do you think it takes to be a good teacher? In your mind, what is it that makes a good teacher? Nicole?
Okay. Understanding, open-minded. I think that it's also important to understand that every child is different, and you have to be able to modify your way of teaching to fit the way the child learns. And I think that that's lacking in a lot of the schools, not only here in the UAE, but also over throughout the world. And that would be the top for me, I think.
For you, Sarah?
What makes a good teacher for me is someone who can connect to his or her pupils, someone who can have a little bit of fun with them, as well as teach them the rudiments of whatever he or she specializes in. That's what makes a good teacher for me.
Jenny?
Mirroring exactly what my colleagues have said, exactly the same. I'd probably add to that being able to pass on key skills that a child can use in all aspects of life, and mainly being independent, teaching them to think.
I think it's also important that teachers love their job. Students really know the difference between the person who's there collecting their salary at the end of the month. They're fed up, they're bored of going over the same information again and again, and they lack passion for what they do. And sometimes I hear students saying, you love that subject so much that it makes me love it too.
Exactly,
so that enthusiasm is really important, as well as remembering certain things. So when a student comes to talk to you about something, you are busy, you've got tons of things that you need to do, but just putting aside that 2-3 minutes to have that conversation with the student and then asking them about it maybe in a few days' time or in a week's time, it really has such a powerful ripple effect, I believe. Yeah.
It makes a world of difference, because I'm not being negative, but very often what happens is teachers, and especially in the secondary school, they are syllabus driven, and therefore I've got to complete the syllabus. There is internal assessment to be done, there's coursework to be done, there's essays to be written, etc., etc. So they sometimes miss out on these little things where the connection is not being established. And the way I look at it is, when you charge your phone, you can only charge your phone when the connection is there.
That's right.
So if you make that one connect, you've got a willing pupil.
But then when you've got curriculums that support this kind of value system, and then you can justify it by saying, fine, I didn't finish this X number of pages, but you know what, we had an excellent teamwork discussion that the kids walked away with learning a lot as a result. If it's supported by the school, then it's less of a challenge, isn't it, than you worrying about getting in trouble for that.
If I might add, Sugata Mitra, he's won the 2013 TED Prize, and he speaks about this hole in the wall experiment, where he says that children learn by themselves. So as I would rather call myself a facilitator and not a teacher. If they know how to read, and if they know how to write, and if they know how to understand, I would go by what Jenny was saying, making them develop critical thinking, giving them a sense of responsibility and ownership of what they do would probably be more effective.
The fact that UNESCO's focus this year on World Teachers' Day is on global citizenship and cultural diversity, absolutely highlights there's a need for it, there's a reason for it, and it's a way of looking at the world that perhaps when I was at school or going back years, that wasn't in the perspective. It was about the community lived within, and perhaps just a little bit wider than that, where you were going to go on and live and work. Now it's the whole world. We're part of this global community, and children, young people that are growing up in this world need to understand that and be able to go out into it with confidence again.
Oh, let's just look at the dress you're wearing, Suzanne. Probably you bought it from Dubai or from your home country. It was probably stitched in Sri Lanka. The material, if it is cotton, probably bought from Egypt. The buttons have been sewn on it by someone in Pakistan. So what is happening now is even the market, it's a global trend. And what I understand is if we will not understand diversity, we will not be able to progress any further. And if we don't inculcate respect, understanding, interdependence, we will have a problem.
I think education is very much so supply and demand here. In general, I guess everywhere you find it. You have huge classes with one teacher, maybe an assistant that kind of floats around. And so sadly, what happens is the teachers are overwhelmed and the teachers are not able to see where those children fall through the cracks, you know? And this is also a big problem, I think, here, which is why training is going to definitely be needed. Maybe to cut down the ratios in the class. Rather than have 27 to 30 kids in a class, maybe it should be maximum of 20 in a class. It's really imperative for every child to take something from their teacher. And I think that when you have more intimate class setting, you have the ability to be able to connect with every single one of those children.
Yeah. So challenges along the way, being able to connect with the children, that you've got the right class size. Someone here, Zayed's asking about the generation gap between the teacher and the student. How do you bridge that? Another challenge might be technology. We touched on that earlier. You know, now we're in the age of technology, and how do we harness that, embrace it, include it, or not, as the case may be? How much do we as teachers, how do you as teachers handle that and manage that when it comes to technology, Jenny?
Yeah, it's a difficult concept, purely because we are in an age of children who are brought up with huge, copious amounts of technology, certainly that I'm not used to. And they're used to it day to day. They have accessibility to technology. They have accessibility to the world. They probably find things out far quicker than what we do as adults. Our job is to bring that into the classroom in a managed, in a exciting way. And what we've launched just 3 weeks ago is bring your own device to school. So we're trying to get children to use the devices and the technology they use at home, bring that into the classroom, and our teachers are doing a good job of trying to find mechanisms that we can use their enthusiasm for technology, bring that into their classroom environment, research skills, for example.
It's another type of intellectual property management, isn't it? So the same way that when we were going to school, we were taught what kind of material we need to use, how to paraphrase it, how to present it in the different sort of activities and essays that we needed to do. Students, you know, and kids need to know the difference between a blog and a journal of academics. You know, what is published information, what is reliable, valid information, and what isn't.
Well, I understand that you have the learning about the technology, but when you have ownership over the technology, how much is that enhancing your development and education, or how much is it interfering if you've got your own device with you at your desk? Because it's interesting what you're doing there. So your thoughts on this, Nicole?
Well, we actually have a no device policy.
Leave your device at home policy.
Leave that there. We want our kids, when the weather permits, to play with something called outside, and also, you know, and also use their minds to be creative. I mean, look.
Nicole, sorry to interrupt. We do that too.
No, I know.
do outside play too.
No, I understand. But I mean, the thing is, you know, we become so absorbed in technology, and I think that children become reliant on technology. And I think when you get to an older age where you can understand, okay, look, I've spent enough time on this device, I need to move on and do something else. If you're using it for research, if you're using it to expand, your brain, then we're all for it. We have one room at our program, which is, the interactive room where we have like an interactive whiteboard and a computer. However, it's not accessible to all children. You find a lot of kids these days really focused and glued to these iPads, these iPhones, and it really takes away the human touch. And that's what we're trying to bring back into the community, that human touch where we actually have to interact with people, not devices. There's a thin line between overuse, which I think, if it's done in moderation, everything in moderation is fine, but we don't have that with us.
The other challenge may be as well for teachers, tell me if I'm wrong or how you manage this, but is the parent, and we touched on this earlier, the relationship not only between the teacher and the child, but the teacher and the parent. How does that go in your life, Sarah?
Well, I, as you were talking, I remember I saw a cartoon. I wish I had brought it, but this is family bonding time, and the picture is the whole family is sitting on the bed. Each one is sitting with their laptops, and each one is, including the baby, playing. So it does possibly, technology is very good, and maybe I'm ancient, and therefore I'm thinking about. I'm not being negative towards technology, but warning signs. What I feel is that there's a lot of information overload, and we have lots of information coming from everywhere, and sometimes we need to be careful about the kind of information our children have access to.
Of course, yeah, it's a huge
some
area as
parental
well.
control
Yeah.
is needed over there.
So parental involvement
yes.
would also include how much parents control the use of technology at home.
Yeah,
right.
So not for the child to be absolutely allowed to stay on there for hours and hours in end, and then suddenly the child goes to school and experiences something different.
And there are sites where it's better that they don't go.
Sure, and we do a lot about that, and we do a lot on this show about that, but the relationship between the teacher and the parent, Jenny.
Yeah, again, I think this is where our Bring Your Own Devices has worked, because it's rolled out in a certain way. I don't want you to think that we put them into the classroom and they're there all the time. They're not. We've gone from year 4 upwards, once a week to start, then it will gradually go to twice a week for certain hours of the day, depending on the subject. But where parents, I think it's educated parents, is there's a safety awareness side that we have taught, which has raised awareness to the parents that they didn't know.
Absolutely.
But what it has done is it's made the children go back and actually tell their parents what sites they've been on, which they maybe might not have known. And that's been a huge plus for building relationships and collaboration with parents, because they're now coming back and saying, can they go on this website? Can they go on this website? Is this helping them with this particular area? And they didn't have that before we launched this. And that's been a huge plus.
Yeah. Nicole?
Yeah. Well, for our program, parents, we love our parents. They're amazing. But parent communication and community support is a big plus. All of our parents are extremely supportive. The community that we live in is extremely supportive as well. But since we don't use these devices, we have to make sure that the parents, the family, the whole family is involved. The community is also involved in bringing these children up. We believe it definitely takes a village to raise a child, and we have once a week meetings with these parents to make sure that whatever is happening at home can also be targeted in the school setting. So it's important for us in today's society to keep everybody in the same loop with education.
This is Voices of Diversity on Dubai Today with Suzanne Radford and Samineh Shaheen, delving into diversity, sharing cross-cultural stories, and celebrating the nationalities living in the UAE. Dubai Today, only on Dubai Eye 103.8.
So let's go to the text messages as we're celebrating World Teachers Day. And there's a range of texts coming in, lots thanking teachers, but also some concerns as well. So here's one from Toby saying that he's recently discovered that perhaps the teacher that's teaching his child may not have an education qualification apart from a general bachelor's degree. So what's your thoughts on that, ladies, when it comes to teachers being qualified here in the UAE? Sarah?
Well, we need to be a teacher. Of course, you need to have the qualifications because you need the paper qualifications, and I agree. And every social system, every educational system will have certain criteria. We need approval from certain educational bodies, etc., etc. But to say to just have a training makes you a teacher, I would disagree with that, because yes, you have your qualifications, but then there are intuitive teachers who teach because they love the subject, because they care for the pupils, because they enjoy interacting with young people, because they love creating a challenging and motivating environment. So I'm not saying that training should not be there. Training definitely hones our skills, makes it better. But if there is a teacher who has this creativity in her or him, if he or she will not be given a chance, how will they grow?
What are your thoughts on that, Jenny, when it comes to qualifications? So you've got, what are the qualifications available? You've got your general degree of what, or it may be a specialist area, of course. What I remember from the UK is a PGCE.
Right.
You can do a PGCE after you've done a degree.
So the
which is
postgraduate
year, certificate of education, or a BEd or a BA. I'm from a BA, which was 4 years of doing a degree alongside 4 years of training in the classroom. Going back, so I'm going to disagree slightly, just slightly.
All right.
I agree. There are people who are, passionate about subjects and passionate about wanting to pass that on to children. But when you say they should be given a chance to show how they can pass that on, I don't think you should be given a chance when it comes to children. You should already know and have had your chance in training.
It would also depend on the interview board.
True.
Because there would be specialists sitting there who would see that spark in that individual, and maybe they could say, all right, you better complete your degree, complete your teaching degree. But to just stop, you're not allowing growth to take place. Is that one of the tenets of education? No. That's what I feel.
Well, there could be an argument to say that you could be a good teacher by just having the instinct and the ability to understand children and how to connect with children and to deliver the information. And others may say, no, you need to be trained in that. And possibly if you're going into systems with curriculums, there might be processes that you need to be trained on or educated on to deliver correctly.
Lesson plans, IEPs, you need to know how to write these, take data.
And it's not just about the subject, is it? It's about managing student conduct, behavioral issues perhaps in the class, structural things and organizational things like course material and outlines and things like,
and to understand the assessment rubrics. I understand that, yes, it's necessary.
Yeah.
But should not be a deciding factor.
Right.
But you find those who don't come with that qualification of being in the classroom don't have that parental experience, that parental collaboration. They don't come with that. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that you need as a teacher as well today.
One of our listeners is recommending we watch a movie. It's an Indian movie titled Ter Zameen Par, and he's saying that this film is beautifully made on the plight of many children with learning challenges and the trends of syllabus pushing. So that's from Maya. Thank you for that, Maya, and that recommendation. We've had quite a few people text in about children with learning difficulties or specialist areas of learning. Now, you've been working in the UAE, Nicole, for a long time. And when we look at teachers today and we're looking at past, present and future, are you seeing developments moving forward when it comes to these areas of teaching?
Yeah, I think I definitely can say yes to that. Last year I had a lot of teachers actually come to the place that I worked at before asking for maybe extra training, how to deal with children that maybe have learning differences, needing behavior modifications or just in general curriculum modifications. And these are really easy to teach. So I can definitely say yes, there is a better awareness, a better understanding, but it's not throughout every school that I've been to. So it still needs to be targeted.
Somebody here saying my son has learning difficulties and we took him to many places for help in Dubai. However, the biggest problem we have here is the transient society, and a lot of the teachers are perhaps not so as focused on career and move on quite soon, and also he's saying in his opinion that perhaps more bothered about their social life, and he found that there was quite a lot of negativity around teaching. So he decided to take his son to a UK boarding school established in 1800 and with teachers that are extremely positive and are therefore extremely good role models. And he says the difference between the two schools is so great. So your thoughts on that? It's not good news, is it? If
you have win situations and lose situations, you know. I mean, it really depends also on what the parent feels. You know, at the end of the day, the parent's the deciding factor. If you feel that your child's not going to learn in an environment here, then it's your job as a parent to take that child to where you feel they will thrive. So, you know, you have a lot of pros and you have a lot of cons, but you also have a lot of centers and schools and programs here that can absolutely accommodate children, you know.
And here, which is lovely, I'm actively supporting my 19-year-old daughter to move into teaching. She has a great EQ, creative and passionate, and I've seen her in action. So, ladies, your advice to people who may be thinking of teaching as a profession or indeed for their children growing up and looking to the future, what would you say is the best thing for you being a teacher?
Volunteer.
Volunteer
to see if it's what you want.
Hands-on.
Yeah.
Best thing for me being a teacher is the zing that I get. I cannot explain it, but after a lesson goes well, it's like a zing. It's an energy boost, and I'm being purely selfish over here. It makes me feel so good. And the positivity and just energy that I get from my pupils.
Yeah, when
it's
they
great.
get it. When they get it, that's the moment
They
you're just
do.
like, yes,
They
this
do.
is what I'm doing it for.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I've been in the classroom now 18 years, and every single day I get up and love my job. To the point you come in at 6:45 and the next thing you look at the clock, it's 3:00. It's too much to do. It's just it's a great place to be. Children are
And
the
don't
future.
don't get discouraged if your family and friends tell you, listen, I'm not one of your students.
Oh yeah, we get that
guys
all
get
the
that,
time. Talk to me
ladies?
like
Yeah.
a teacher.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I get that all the time,
Jeez.
especially when it comes to games at Christmas.
Well, listen, you're doing a wonderful job, and not to ever underestimate the work that teachers are doing, and sometimes the pressures that they're under and the hard work and commitment that goes into teaching. So celebrating World Teachers Today, it's been a real pleasure talking with you.